So this is the backyard of a California home, and what you'll see here, this is a huge valley that we have tons of water coming down onto this property from. And then you have a huge hill, pretty darn big hill, and you have a lot of water that comes from that hillside too. So the plan of action is that we have already actually done this first cut. You can see that first cut across the hillside. That captures the majority of the water. And you know, we have literally a river of water that comes through, and so we've already had it tested now a couple times with a couple good storms that came through, and the water cascades or sheets over the top of the ground, hits where the HydroBlox is buried, and it just disappears into the ground. So beautiful. So now what we've done is we've now dug this trench, and this trench is our first line of defense to the house. That hillside is the first line of defense to the house. This trench goes all the way out to the side of the house and all the way out to the street. I'll show you that in another take. So I like to think of things oftentimes in military terms. As I said earlier, this was our first line of defense. Then we have a trench for the middle of the yard, and this is our second line of defense. Then for our final line of defense, we have another trench here. We'll put HydroBlox in here. So you see our storm drain, or rather our downspout, will pour it out to the side of the house where we have a storm drain or where we have a pipe that takes it out to the street. So now we're looking at the hillside where we have our first line of defense for the massive amounts of water. More water comes from this side than it does from the hillside, okay? But still we get a lot of water from the hillside, but we get a tremendous amount of water because there's a big valley here. And so we have HydroBlox buried underneath here, and this has already been tested by a couple heavy storms, and it's worked beautifully. So I wanted to have one line of defense here, and then we have another line of defense here. So you can see that we have a trench running to the fence, and then that trench is connected with the trench that's in the middle of the yard. And in case you're wondering, I was going to use stormwater boxes to take the middle downspout water and put it into the boxes and have it perk down into the ground at the rate at which the ground would accept it. But our soil here is a very clay rich soil, and so the water just doesn't perk very well. So instead I'm just connecting this downspout to where the other downspout ports out to the street. So as you can see, we've had some work here. But the point is that we now have the house, and we had a tremendous amount of water. Normal home, normal lot, normal property, you're not going to need this kind of protection, but we literally have rivers of water that come from the hillside and come from this valley. And then there's a house on top of the hill that, you know, unfortunately they port all their water down, and you know what rolls downhill, water does too. And so this is the backyard line of defense. Now here we are on the side of the house. This is what I've already shown you, but let me walk you through all the way on the side of the house. Obviously the house is having a lot of work done. There is a dump run about to be made, and so you can see I laid in one plank of HydroBlox just to measure up my depth of the trench to make sure I'm good, and I am. And so this will take it all the way out to the street. And as you can see, we're digging the hole underneath the fence. And then we have this trench that will run it out to the street, and then we'll have it connect to a bubble up, what I call a bubble up box out there at the street, and then that'll pour it out onto the street and go into the city storm drains. And so that's it. That's one house's drainage system in what is an extremely let's say severe case of water. I mean, you can see it, that whole valley, all the water comes straight down to this property. So there you have it. We've already had that first line of defense tested. It's already captured, you know, the vast majority actually of the water, because we do get most of the water, like I said earlier, from that side. But now we'll have this this line of HydroBlox as the second line of defense, and as I showed you before, we have the This is the first line, the outer of the property, outer perimeter of the property. Then we have the middle of the yard, and then we have the one run right up against the house. This house is going to be as dry, this property is going to be as dry as can possibly be. That's it.